to welcome Alejandra Madrigal Avina. Am I saying that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, good. One of our newest union members, and very exciting. I've
Yes.
worked with you now on 2 different shows, and you've done an amazing job both times. I've specifically invited you here to talk about your experience getting into the union and what it's like working as a costumer. And let's start at the beginning of what got you into costumes in the first place.
I originally began, I guess, like as an artistic kid. I like to draw, and then I found theater, and I didn't like being in front of people, so I found myself very much gravitating towards, stage crew and that kind of life. And financially, my high school offered to pay us as stage crew for any performance dates. So that was also something that I was like, hey, parents, I can get paid to do artsy things. Like, hey. So I was the stage manager for all 4 years of my high school experience. And then I thought, hey, I really enjoy doing this. I'm going to go to college for it. And then I got to college and they required us to take design classes. And I was like, this will be fun. Like, sure. And I started, and I found lighting design and costume design to be something of parallel interest to me. And UCLA offered a very structured, loving, supportive community in terms of costume design. Their lighting design program was very unorganized. So I found myself in the costume world and just surrounded by amazing people. And so I continued on that track. And then I found the film students, and I loved how crazy and insane they were and that high intensity pace. So I started doing short films for them and costume designing for them. And then finished my college degree in that, and then started PAing out into the world for costume department, wanting to learn how actual productions do their thing. And here I am.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what a PA is and how you found PA jobs and what you do as a PA and what PA stands for?
PA stands for production assistant, and I found myself in being offered positions. Unfortunately, I guess it's just like who you know. And I think that that's just a terrible way to introduce people into this industry. But a lot of it is like, oh, I've worked with that person before. Let me recommend you. And it doesn't have to sound so nepotistic. It can be like, oh, my friend of a friend has offered me this position. But I do feel it is that way. I was fortunate in my professor who, and just friends from short films, actually, that I'd worked on. A friend who went to FIDM, who we had done some short films together. She had a professor, somebody who came in at FIDM, who was a 705 member. And I knew her, I was introduced to her, and I was like, nice to meet you. And then she offered me the position on SWAT. She was like, hey, they're looking for a PA. I know you don't have any experience, but you are extremely competent and you can figure it out. And as a PA, it is not, there's a guidebook, there's rules. Not everyone follows these rules. And it's a little difficult and saddening because it's like, as production assistants for what you want to be doing in your department, you want to be learning the trade. You want to be learning what they're doing and how they're doing it, where they're doing all these things, but also to enforce, not PA abuse and like having, poor underpaid individuals doing work that should be covered work. It's a really difficult balance. But as a PA, you're supposed to only be allowed, as far as I know right now, it may have changed. You can get lunch, you can organize things if they've been pre-organized by a 705 member. You are allowed to take returns that have been pre-prepared by a 705 member and get coffee. You can get lunch. You're allowed to do crafty, but little else. You can cut out pictures also. That's also allowed. You're allowed to do that.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your latest project?
Oh yes. So right now I'm working on Star Trek Picard with lovely Beth, and it's been great. And it's actually the project that allowed me entry into the union world. So there's several different ways to get unionized. Um, all unfortunately end up being kind of difficult and hard to find. Oh, hello. But the avenue in which I was able to be granted unionization was my supervisor saw that we needed more costumers, and he went to the roster and he had said that he couldn't find competent costumers. And he looked at me and he said, she is very competent. She is what I'm looking for. I'm going to go through the process of negotiating with the producers and the UPM and the lawyers at Viacom and saying she should be unionized. So my supervisor Mitch went through that process for me, and so that was amazing and wonderful. And then through that, I had to get some letters of recommendation and start speaking to the local union 705 about what the process and paying dues and all that. And I'm finally through most of that. I'm still waiting for my swearing in ceremony, but everything else is basically settled, which is great.
What do you think the most detailed thing you've ever worked on was?
I don't know if this is a detailed work that I worked on a feature that was in black and white, and that was its own fun challenge because the world is not in black and white. So in order to look at, costume pieces and, outfits and whatnot, I would just constantly be looking at things through my phone. It's a black and white filter just to understand things. So I don't know if that's detail oriented, but that's an example of something.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the work that you do now?
Yeah, so I've been super fortunate in I am all over the place on Star Trek, which is such an amazing learning experience, having gone from only being allowed to do returns and crafty to now being allowed to do kind of anything that encompasses being a costumer. So I have been thrown into fittings, which has been amazing, putting together fittings, learning how to do that, learning how to take fitting photos, communicating as a general team and being able to, here are the photos, these are the research photos, go ahead and start pulling this, and these are the sizes. And so I was doing that all today, which was so fun. 12 fittings, excellent. And but for the last 2-3 months, I've been working with our fabric sourcer, which has been really, really exciting too, because I had no experience in the fabric world. We did not cover, I feel, fabrics well at UCLA. It was like a little hour segment and that was it. And so being able to work with such an experienced fabric sourcer like Elise and learning about fabrics and different textures and colors and where to get things locally, where to get things nationally. We do a lot more with New York than I ever thought we would. So that's been super cool. And then just going to make, creating relationships at different fabric houses has been super fun. It's like a wizarding world. You're just going out and you're like, where can I find this? Who does this for me? Who will create this beautiful leather that I will then get perforated and painted and then skived? It's insane.
Do you want to expound a little bit on that, of what's specifically entailed in that job versus a finished costumer in a fitting room, or a floating costumer that you get to do a little bit of a lot of stuff, right?
Definitely. So what they're calling me right now is a utility costumer, which I've interpreted this as being anything goes. So they'll pop me into fittings and with our fabric sourcer. I've been on set working with our set costumers. So that's where my position. And then a fabric sourcer, as kind of the name entitles, they're not just looking for fabric, they're also looking for our notions, they're looking for hardware. they're really an all-encompassing job title, and they're working with our workrooms, making sure that they have everything they need, the supplies necessary, working with our key customers and coordinating things with our different workshops out house versus in-house work. and and yeah, so that's a fabric sourcer. And then there's set costumers, costumers who are on set, principal set costumers, background costumers who are specifically working with our background on set. Yeah, it's excellent.
All right. What are some of your favorite tools for the job?
My computer has been so great. Different apps have been very helpful as in different roles. When I was working as a PA, we were using Airtable as our database for tracking, receiving, and logging all of our shipments, when they came, their shipping information, their tracking information. That's been very helpful for our shopper Kasha as well, because that is just a database that you create and you mold to whatever you need. And it can just, you can see very clearly, it has a number, it has like who it's for, what the paperwork looks like, when it needs to go back, if it's gone back already. It's just an excellent tool. My car has been my savior. I actually recently had to change cars because I was driving so much. There's a lot of mileage in this job, and especially as a fabric sourcer or as being a PA, you just drive so much. My phone. I've used my iPad and a handful to take notes, and to be able to kind of run around. But I think those are probably my main tools. I can't think of anything else that like I couldn't live without if I went to work.
So what are some of your favorite fabrics?
Ooh, I have recently been obsessed with just rayon, weirdly enough, and discovering like viscose and tricot fusibles. I never really understood fusibles because we didn't do a lot of construction at UCLA. So learning all that kind of stuff has been really interesting. Hymo, I mean, like, I know they're not anything crazy to anyone else, but I'm like, oh, this is amazing. This is what you use it for. That's so cool. But yeah, I don't think I could pick one right now, but I really love going to rag finders and just watching literally anything. It's a really interesting, wild west of a place to just, what is this? Who knows? Guess.
What was the hardest thing for you to learn how to do?
I think a lot of the hard things to do just require practice and experience and working through it. Like I had done fittings before for short films that I had done, but it's kind of a different world once you're working on a much bigger production. You're working with 10 times the amount of people you had, and also I think the hardest thing I had to do was to learn how to jump back into a position where I felt confident, because working as a PA, I feel, are often kind of just put as, and it's not a bad thing, it's a learning position. It's, it's part of entry level. But you're not given a whole lot of responsibility, and, that's on purpose. They're trying to protect you. And then to kind of immediately, very quickly turn the corner and say, you are now in charge of all of these things that you have not had practice in doing so in the last 3 or 4, potentially 5 years for some people. That is a very difficult jump to learn how to trust yourself again, to learn how to, if you had done it before, relearning all those things or learning them for the first time, because as a PA, you're not supposed to be doing any of those things. So a lot of those things you are learning for the very first time. So I think that is the most difficult thing for me, was to just like, you've done this before. It's like riding a bike. You can do it again. But being timid in that.
What's some fitting room advice you'd like to share?
Oh my gosh, fitting room advice. I would say go off of your tailor or your cutter fitter. I think they lead the fitting, and you should go off of their expertise and their preferences. Some people, like today, Augusta has her pins in her little bag and she pins herself. Some people like to be handed their pins. I have done both ways. It's just, it's whatever they're comfortable with. Augusta was writing notes for some of it, and then I started writing notes for her, and she seemed comfortable with that. Not everyone is comfortable with that. I think it's just making sure, like today I was having a lot of communication with Augusta because I want to make sure I'm writing it, because she will be doing the alterations, that I'm writing it in a way that she understands, and not in a way that I understand, because like today saying something as pinned versus hem, they're very different. And making that difference and not assuming, I think, is very, very important in a fitting. And I mean, also, I guess, human psychology, checking in with the person you're fitting. If they're uncomfortable, it's a very scary thing to be like emotionally naked with another person and intimate trying on clothes. And sometimes you can really feel when they're not feeling it. And that takes time. That takes a little bit of practice. But yeah, more than anything, go off of the person in the room that will be doing all of the alterations. If you have them, they know more.
What's an industry secret you wish you would have known when you first started out?
What industry secret would I have liked to know before starting out? I mean, I guess this is kind of a sad one, but there's a lot of nepotism in this industry. I don't know if that's much of a secret, honestly, but I guess I never understood how apparent it was until I started working on larger scale projects, that it's a lot of kids of prominent producers, directors, I mean, even supervisors. Like, it's a lot of a family business, which makes sense. I understand why that is. I guess I just didn't expect that.
What are some of your favorite things that you've worked on?
Favorite things that I've worked on. I know that this is kind of I think everyone makes the silly response, but I do believe it. I like everything I've worked on in a different way. I've learned so much from them. Like on SWAT, I really got to understand episodic in a way I never understood. We went through so many episodes so quickly, and learning, contemporary, like understanding that and shopping that and seeing how they did that. On Star Trek, it's been so much like, how is sci-fi created? How are you creating this world? And what it takes to have such a huge team, pulling it all together is like, I think we have a very large crew for the costume department, and it's amazing to see all the little cogs doing their little things. But I mean, also when I did my feature like 4 years ago, I was the only person on the costume department. I did everything, and that was so extremely painful, but I learned so much from it. So extremely painful. I would never want anyone to ever do it. I would never do it again, but I learned a lot.
What kind of things at work get you excited to work on?
I guess when I'm doing something a little different. Like, I was in fabric world for a long time, and it was excellent and amazing, but I had been doing it for a while, that I was like, all right, this is tomorrow. So when on Friday they said you're going to be doing fittings on Monday, I was very excited. I was like, something different, something cool. I get to talk to people, I get to be in the fittings. I hadn't done that in a while. So that was very exciting. I love talking to Ivory and Tura, our ager dyers, and distressors. Their work really fascinates me. I don't think I would ever want to be their job, but just watching them and conversing with them and just picking apart their artistic brain, I think, is just endlessly fascinating. Like, how they age, how they structure their aging, how like the different tools and chemicals that just Ivory uses in spray painting and like artistically creating, and then Tura's like color harmony chemistry is just so cool to me. So cool.
What do you think is the most challenging part of your job?
But I think that this is probably the most challenging thing for most workplaces, but I think it's just making sure everyone's on the same page. And I think that is specifically important for our department because it's so large. But it could be said for smaller departments as well, making sure everyone is on the same page. There's a reason that Natasha, our digital customer, like sends out the schedules. That's amazing. We're all on the same page. We know where our designer is for most parts of the day, most of them. Um, and just communicating and writing tags to deliver to people that are clear. That sounds like such a simple idea, but it is not. It is not at all, because sometimes you're working with language barriers. Sometimes you're just working with communication barriers. Like I said it this way, like we had said about fitting and how you write things. The wording really, really makes a difference. And it can sound like such an easy task to write something and be like, of course they will understand it. It is so simple. It is not so simple, because from point A to B, C, D, E, E, F, something will be lost. It will 100% be lost.
What role have mentors played in your career?
Oh, tremendous. I've been so fortunate that I would consider Amy, Carmen, and Mitch to be huge mentors in my life. And very fortunate that I found them, and that they are accepting of me as a mentee. They wrote my letters of recommendation into the union. They have, like I said, Carmen has been nothing but extremely supportive in teaching me her method, and then being open to anything that I can suggest. And just picking Amy's brain and how she communicates. She is just such a charming, smart, witty, experienced person, and just being able to just watch her work is just phenomenal. And Mitch is just amazing. He has done so much, and he knows what to ask for. He knows how to ask for it. He knows how to get things done. He knows how to create teams. Just being around them is such an amazing experience, because it's just like you just learn from watching them interact.
What advice would you give to students wanting to follow in your footsteps?
I would say be patient. It's really hard, and it's hard to be patient, but try your best and be proactive, be kind, and like tell people you are interested. Like people more often than not will want to help you. Like you let them know, like, hey, I'm a production assistant now. This is fantastic. I really think I want to be a set costumer. I really think I want to do made to order. Like people more than likely are gonna be like, oh, you should talk to this person. Oh, you should talk to my friend. You should talk. Like they say it's an industry of like connections, but it's I mean, I would also say it's like emotional connections. Like they want to see you succeed. They want to see you go down a path. And especially if you want to do made to order, there's not enough. There's not enough. If you want to sew, please sew. Please sew. Please. But if you don't, if you want to be a costumer, that's great too. But yeah, like just talk to people, be open, make your interests known. And if you're having trouble finding like a production assistant placing, I've learned Facebook, weirdly enough, has such a huge group, like production assistant groups. And if you're fast enough to some of the postings, you might be able to land a connection with somebody who needs a PA on Young Sheldon, or who needs a PA on Blackish or something. And just having one day in an office with those people is fantastic, because you can prove, you're smart, you're able, you're extremely competent, and more than anything, that you're kind and interested.
What kind of education do you think is good?
I think this industry has such a like you don't have to go to school for any of these positions, and to think that anyone's better than or anything because you went to school, I think is kind of foolish to think, but I think you have to look at it from the individual's perspective. If you feel you need more schooling, by all means, and you would like that schooling, by all means, you will learn it if you go to a school that will help you with that. But if you feel you will learn better by experience and by trial and fire, which you can learn a lot that way, um, that also works. I mean, Mitch has mentioned it to me and he teases about it, but I don't believe I think he went straight from high school into the costuming world. And he's amazing. He's amazing. And he's done amazing, amazing things. Like, you don't need a college education. Um, but he'll joke and be like, "You went to college, you should be able to do this." And it's like, I did go to college, Mitch, I did, but you know so much more than I do. But that's, experience and just time. But yeah, if you feel, I mean, especially I think it's like everyone's different. If you have been sewing since you were a kid and you like going to classes for it, by all means do that. That's how you can learn. But if you are somebody who's just been self-taught your entire life and you're fantastic that way, by all means, that's another way to do it. um, I think it's really up to the individual. I'll never knock education. I think schooling is amazing and you can just, it's a safe place to experiment and gain mentorship and connections, and it can sound like you're paying for connections in some way. And I think in some ways you could be, but you're also gaining friendships and experience and a portfolio and how to create a portfolio. And a lot of that is difficult to do on your own.
How do you choose which projects or employers to work for?
Excellent question. I think that also goes back to the whole, if you're fortunate enough, calling people who have worked with those people before and being like, are they nice? Did you enjoy working with them? But you're not always as fortunate with that, especially if you're new to the game. I think, you know, being very transparent with them as well, is a good way to be detecting smells of a bad workplace. Just being like, this is what I'm looking for. This is how I would like to go about it. Is this a place where I can do that? But yeah, I think talking to people, and laying out if this is the project that you want to be working on. But it is difficult. You don't really know if it's a toxic work environment until you're in it. Um, I've been fortunate that I've never not been in a toxic work environment. I've been fortunate with the projects I've been on. But, knowing your worth, I think, is important, and not, if you detect it, being honest with yourself and like, is this the best place for me? And it's okay to walk away from positions where you're being abused and you recognizing that. That's okay. It's a small world and it's also a big world.
What do you think is the most important thing to be able to create a successful collaborative environment?
I would think honesty, kindness, transparency, communication, clear, direct communication. Yeah, I think honesty, transparency, and kindness. I think if you can do that, you can be communicating between departments and collaborating in an efficient and productive way. Also, I think something I'm learning with our designer, that it just like he has been someone that I've been I really admire his ability to not freak out over things. Not all designers are like that. Not all designers can look at something that is a kind of a freak out moment and take it and be like, all right, maybe we spin it. I think that ability is extremely helpful, looking at the positive edge of it, like, what can we do with that? Maybe it's not a disaster. Maybe that's not a loss. And being able to relay that kind of positive energy to the rest of your team, so not everyone's freaking out that this didn't come out the way it was supposed to, like, sometimes art is accidents. It happens.
That is excellent advice. You can't fix it, feature it, right? Yeah.
And Mitch has this such a funny story, but this is the condensed version of it, is that like we're not performing brain surgery, at the end of the day. Like, we treat this enormous amount of money that we are creating to create, entertainment, with a lot of seriousness and military edge with our organization and efficiency. But at the end of the day, they are clothes going on people's bodies for, media consumption, not heart brain surgery.
That is a really good point. That at the end of the day, we make fake clothes for people who never existed, right?
Yeah. And it's amazing, and it's a privilege. It's an extremely amazing, wonderful privilege. But to be killing ourselves or to be abusing your staff for something as this is not okay. And we take care of each other. This is all fun and amazing and work, but we take care of each other.
Well put. I like that. What are some red flags that you look for as far as working environments are concerned? That's a tough question. There's so much easier to see once they whiz by you, right? Like
my boyfriend, who's an editor, actually, he started making a list of like just red flags immediately, and I wish I had that list on me.
Well, maybe I'll bug you someday at work and be like, hey, can you share the list? What?
I should find it. He has a list of questions that he like ready to ask employers, and if they respond in like a certain way on this list, it's like, oh, that's a red flag. Oh, that's a red flag. Like it's a great list that's very smart of him to start creating. But I think just anything that starts sounding kind of abusive, or like they're not respecting your time. And, or they ask you to stay late, and they're not going to pay you for those hours, or they kind of dance around the idea of that, or they're not crystal clear on how much you're going to be paid. That, I think it's easy to spot people who will take care of you, because it's like, they're so easy. It's so simple. They're like, okay, I sent the money. Hope you got it. Did you get it? Done. And in other experiences I've had, you fight with producers who are like, oh, I paid you, or like, oh, this was only supposed to be for, what's that word? Exposure. This is just exposure for your work. And
we're not die of exposure.
Yeah. One will die from exposure, like you don't, this is all like, I have been actually, I've turned down 2 positions because they were not clear on pay. And when I went to them and I said, this is, I thought, obviously paid work. And they were like, oh no, we cannot pay our crew. We can only afford to the budget. And I was like, yeah, no, so I can't do that. I'm at a point where maybe you could be asking students for that. And even if you are a student, you should be very clear on if you are willing to accept that work, because your time is valuable and your time deserves to be compensated, because you are not just a machine. You deserve to be compensated for your time. Your time is not free. You could be doing a million other things with your time.
What do you feel are the hallmarks of a well-run workroom or show?
I think it will be so it will feel very simple. Like, it's like, oh yeah, of course, this is how it's supposed to run. Like, I think there's a simplicity and efficiency to it that is almost like, of course it's done this way. But I think that's one of the little trademarks of Mitch being such a good supervisor, is that, like, I'm sure it's not that easy, and the way he runs his ship is very clear. And I know he works like every weekend making sure that we're okay. That, yeah, I think that those, if your supervisor is clearly invested and is clearly fighting and advocating for you, and is, now that I think about it, I think Mitch is a very obvious, like, green flag. Like, he's very transparent about money. He's very clear when you can't pay him a certain way. He's very clear of, like, you're on a 10-hour today, you're on a 12. Like, there's no miscommunication. There's no, like, hiding anything. It's like, no, do not work more than this. Go home, leave. There's no expectation for you to be here past 10 hours. Like, I think those are all excellent examples of, like, that person cares about you as a person, but as an employer and an employee, and they're not going to abuse your time.
What do you like to, or how do you like to negotiate when you are considering an offer?
I think on other projects, I'm still very new to union work and how that works moving forward. So I can't say much for these bigger productions that I worked for, but on smaller independent films and shorts and whatnot, I would just try to increase my pay from every project because I had learned more from that project and my experience was that much more valuable. Um, and I think that's a nice reminder of like, you are growing as a person, as a, costumer, designer, whatever it is, you have improved, your worth is now more. And you should be reminding yourself that with your financial incentive for yourself. So that's how I was doing it before. And I think, when you negotiate, if something sounds extremely low, like I think most of the time you will bring an offer. And if they come back to you and they're like, absolutely not, it's like, okay, next, no, thank you. If it's absurd, if they're not willing to hear you out on the number that you have demonstrated from your experience and whatnot, I think once you have to defend yourself and I think some pay, I think that's also a red flag. It's like, all right, then maybe we should not be having this conversation if you're not willing to understand that somebody is supposed to be worth X amount of money. I think green flag, I guess, would be when somebody is willing to hear you, willing to talk to you, willing to understand like, all right, so if that is your day rate, perhaps this could be your kit rental because that's all we have. Understandably, let's talk about that. And that's your car allowance and that's your phone allowance. Like those are all things that I think with more experience, you'll start deciding what's important, what's not important, and, your overall value as a person. And that I think also comes with confidence. The more projects you do, the more you'll feel, I know what I'm doing. I am worth this. But when you're first starting out, it is terrifying to be like, I'm not worth this much money. Like you are worth that much money. At least remind yourself you are worth minimum wage. You are worth minimum wage. Do not accept anything below minimum wage. Unless of course that's your own choice, but know that you're at least worth minimum wage.
I have two last questions for you.
Great.
The first one is, do you have any other things you would like to say to the next generation of costumers?
Oh my gosh, what would I want to say? It's so important.
You've already said a lot of really good things too, so don't worry about it. No pressure. Also, this is getting edited, so take as long as you need. If I can edit out the cats dive bombing me, like
the cats are so
good. You can have a moment to consider.
I think I would say pace yourself, but also know your worth. Pace yourself and know your worth. It's one thing to be patient. It's one thing to be passive. And you should remember your time is worth something. You should remember what you want to do. You should be, interested, and people more often than not want to help you seek the thing you want to be doing. They want to be teaching. They want to be showing you what to do, how to do it, when to do it. But also, don't allow yourself to be abused, and recognize what that is. And if you are being abused, consider leaving that, consider putting yourself first. And try not to get bogged down by the industry because it can be kind of heavy. And it can be extremely heavy more when you're coming in as an outsider, because I think there is that tendency to look at the nepotism and all the money and be like, I feel very odd in this place and scared and like I don't know anyone. But there's a lot of friendships in all of that, and you're not the only person who feels lost, and you're not the only person who feels like an outsider. And like we talked about, everyone's story is so different. That you will find someone who has some shared element of their story. And you can find connection in that. You can find emotional, colleagues in all of this. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I knew somebody and I got the job. It's like, no, I made a friend and I got a job. I made a friend.
Last question.
Yes.
Is there anything I can plug for you? Do you have an Instagram? Do you have what are different things that I can put down in the little doobly-doo that should I put your IMDb?
I think I have one. You could put my IMDb. It should be my name. Yep. I have a website if people want to see that. That's fun.
That can be really useful, especially for people like my website is ancient at this point.
Yeah.
It still looks like what it looked like when I moved out here, pretty much. It is. Dinosaurs walked the earth when that website came out. So I think it'd be really useful for students to see, someone a little bit closer to.
But it's also so interesting too, it's you get to people like Mitch, and Mitch doesn't have a website. Mitch doesn't need a website. Mitch barely needs his IMDb at this point. You don't. It's so interesting because I think in school, and I think for good reason, schools will be like, oh yeah, you need your portfolio, you need a hot website, you need a business email, you need your business cards, you need to have all that, your resume, have all those things. And then you get to somebody at Mitch's level, and Mitch gets phone calls as do you want the job? Mitch doesn't need anything else. And I think it would
we throw our money at you? What can we do to entice you?
Yeah, it's I think it would be below Mitch to have a website or to have anything else advertising how amazing he is, because he's just at a point where it's not necessary. So I think it's just so interesting, where you start and how you end up. And it's just the simplicity just carries.
Mm-hmm. I do think it is really useful to have when you're starting out.
Absolutely. I agree.
I know my portfolio got me jobs when I first moved out here and was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and knew no one.
Yeah.
Because they'd look at it and be like, oh, you have pad stitching in here.
Yeah.
Although honestly, a lot of the jobs that I got were, you have a heartbeat, come here. So
I think that's so much of it too. It's just I know you, I trust you, come over. Can you come tomorrow? Can you come next week? But
what's after? Come on, man. Throw me a bone.
But I have found that my website has often acted as evidence that I'm a person, that I do costumes. And sometimes it acts as a portfolio for producers who are oh, you want to bring this person on? I don't know them. Do they have something that I, as a producer who doesn't trust you and working with the money, can prove that she is a person, or they are a person who does anything? That's what I've seen my website be used more as that than anything, which is great to have. It's great to have when you're starting and you don't know anyone.
And IMDb too. Mm-hmm. The more that I work, the more people I'm the only Elizabeth Estervig anywhere. So it's easy to find. Right. Yes. And so, the more people just look me up there and go from there. But honestly, word of mouth, it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Back when I was in grad school, I think I got warned that was going to be a thing, right? That when you first start out, you have to be absolutely meticulous and have everything perfect in your portfolio, because people will notice that, right? Because when you're first starting off, they're looking for indications that you're going to fail, right?
Yeah.
Which, spoiler alert, everybody fails.
Yeah.
That's what humans do when we're learning stuff, right? That it happens. Everybody does it, right?
And that's okay.
But eventually, you get to the point where we were talking to professionals in the field and interviewing them kind of like this, right? And being so what is real life work like? And they're well, I started out with a portfolio. Now I sometimes have a couple of, 5x8 pictures or Polaroids that I have stuffed into my personal, thrown into a table, and then be I did those.
Yeah. I did that.
Hire me.
Yeah.
And it was now it's Instagram and phones. Hands your phone over and be
it's weird.
Yeah, that's
it's
great.
A weird world that we're living in with now social media and the internet. The internet is new for so many. I think the costume department is such an ancient department. We're not but also we're so innovative.
Kicking and screaming into the 21st century. Yeah.
Yeah. We're working with some patterns that are like hundreds of years old, guys.
Oh
Like
yeah.
some things that haven't changed. The way that you make them, it hasn't changed. Like, and you expect some of our department to be like working on their emails. Like some people don't know how to use the email. It's okay. It's all right.
Oh, it's so true. It's so true.
Like
And
we're
I mean,
a whole
like
department.
over lunch, we were talking about a potential solution for a sleeve with 1360s technology,
Yeah, yeah, it's
as you do,
like,
right?
like that's
But at the same time, like, I have never heard of the apps that you were talking about earlier, and they sound like magic to me. Like that that sounds like it takes a lot of the awfulness out of trying to figure. That's brilliant. It's brilliant using the tools that you have to get stuff done more efficiently, right?
I think that that's also such a it's such a something I'm very excited to see from the younger generation is that a lot of these people have grown up with technology. Like I the internet wasn't always a thing. Like emails were not always a thing. Like these are all new contraptions. iPhones are new contraptions. Sync on set is a new contraption. um
Mm-hmm.
so like it's really I'm very excited to see what like younger customers are going to be bringing in, just like Airtable or like these strange databases, because there is we are moving towards using that all the time. We are using our phones all the time.
Oh yeah.
But bringing that connection to like 1360 pattern making and iPhones of today into the
Yep.
costume department is just like I'm it's so fun to see what will be created in this strange concoction of a department. Um,
Well, I was definitely using my phone to show off the 1360 sleeves I was talking about. Let me tell you, right? Like,
yep, there it is. There's the
yep.
connection. Yeah,
Well,
I'm very
so
excited to
good.
see younger customers bringing in. I mean, my boyfriend and I were talking about and I think he's wild. I mean, he works with computers. He's an editor. Like sometimes he says things and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? That's not going to work. I barely have people using their emails at work. Like calm down." He was talking about putting NFT tags onto clothes to track them and have a clear database of like what it is, where it came from. And I was like, you're wild. You're wild if you think that's gonna happen.
Oh man, like
I was like,
trying to talk customers into do it.
like I don't know if I can get them to do that.
They,
Like,
they barely adopted barcodes and only in some shops. Like,
dude, I had this whole conversation with him, and I was like, barcodes are the extent at which, like, when I worked at Palace, we're still using like the keyboard computer database. Like, it doesn't do anything else. Like, are you kidding
yeah.
me?
Oh man. I mean, when I worked in a fabric warehouse,
Mhm.
we didn't have beepers or barcodes. And they still don't. They
Yeah,
still don't.
you don't.
We had to memorize all the
Oh
prices
my
to work the
god.
register.
Oh my god. See, like, and that's the world, that's this ancient world of costuming that we're living in. And like
Yep.
bridging that with like now we're working with like databases and spreadsheets and computers and iPhones that take pictures. Is like just it's fascinating to see this transition, to see this overlap, to see this tension. Like that I think will be so interesting to see younger customers bringing in that desire, I think, to start bridging that gap. And but I also hope to see younger customers like be as excited as I am to learn about, films that operated before the internet. I'm fascinated to see, continuity books that were made by hand, Polaroids. Like I know it was inefficient, but like how did you do it? How did you organize yourself before the internet? Like those, you just learn so much understanding both sides.
How did they do continuity before Polaroids?
Yeah, like how were you
Like,
doing things? You were spending so much money with film. Like how like
oh
it's
man,
so cool.
it really is. And seeing the old cards with
Yeah.
and the thing is too, speaking of people still using old stuff,
Yeah.
we we still got stuff in at uni
Yeah.
that had Polaroids
Yes.
stapled to it,
Yeah.
like, and
Like
continuity with Polaroids because it works, and
yes.
that's how they knew how to do it. So
Like And I'm like, that stuff isn't like gone for a reason. Like, I think younger customers should be learning these parts and these old, like not traditions, but these old ways of doing things. Like, because then you can decide it's inefficient now. We have a better system. But like knowing point A will get you to point B. Like, you should understand how it was done before you try to reinvent the wheel. Like, it was invented at some point. Maybe we can improve it, but you should understand that it was invented first.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it can help you when you understand the past, it help you transition
Yes.
into the future, right?
Absolutely.
Like I know some of the welted pockets that I've put into some of the things that we built for this show
Mhm.
are technology from the 40s, right? Like
What?
some of the drafts that Sharon uses, she develops herself based off of drafts from the 1900s, the 1950s, the 1920s, just like
It's
put
so cool.
together to fit the modern body, right?
Yeah.
Just like Q in a frock coat.
I know. Like, and we're just always going to be referencing these
So
things.
pretty.
So pretty. Like, these things don't go away. And I think, especially in our department, like, we are working with ancient techniques, ancient, like weaving.
Vitruvian man.
Like, weaving has
Humans
been
have been human
around
shaped for a
for
while.
centuries, like these understanding these things helps you get to a better understanding of the whole process, like, it's so cool.
Yeah. Oh man. The within a day you can use, non-Euclidean geometry and,
Yeah.
at the same time use your computer to help figure out, this curve or that, printing out a pattern to repeat over and over again. Like,
Yeah.
the sheer number of times I've seen Dorothy dealing with like 50 billion little tiny pieces. So she'll just go to the Xerox machine,
Mm-hmm.
plunk it down, print it off onto more, cardstock.
Yeah.
And like, that's so brilliant just to have, like, when you need a copy to be able to give to Sophia and a copy to give to me when, like, I'm being lent out to her for a little bit to sew a little
You're
chunk of
on loan.
something, right? Yeah.
You're on loan.
You know what I mean, though,
I
right?
do.
Like,
I know exactly
yeah,
what you mean, but I just think it's funny.
share alike with your stitchers. Yeah, I mean, and I enjoy that because then, we help each other out when things ebb and flow.
Absolutely.
But having all of those extra pieces in the patterns, and so that you can have the big piece, and then
Yeah.
you can set all the little pieces on top of it so you can see both the end result and where you're at all
Yeah.
at once.
It's
This is brilliant.
so smart. Like, but I
And,
mean, that's years of experience that I think Dorothy like has cultivating from like the old way, the new way, constantly your new technologies. And like, Dorothy is the first person to be like, oh my God, you did it that way. Like, she's just so excited to learn different things. And I think having that just excitement and like, freshness to every single day is just
so true.
so important.
I guarantee she knows how to do exactly the same thing with copy paper, graphite paper, and wax paper.
Absolutely.
Like,
just like a little bit
probably
faster
a
now.
house wheel too.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Absolutely.
Like, I bet like, but once you've gone Xerox, it's kind of hard to go back.
It's like it's
like,
faster.
so fast.
It's so fast. It's so clean. Like it's taking these little activities and like, all right, it's shortened now. Cool. Technology really helped me today. Like,
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there are other things like patterning via computer, right?
Yeah.
I have yet to make that faster than doing it on paper.
Yeah.
It's about the same. Even no matter how much practice I put into it.
Yeah.
The time put into it was about the same.
Yeah. And that's one of those things where it's just like
so far.
Like, we meet that little like conveyance of like, sometimes the old way is better, and like, we don't have to be pushing everything to be digital. Like, that it doesn't, innovation and like advancement and progress isn't necessarily pushing everything into the computer. It's just finding what technology makes things a little bit easier, makes it better.
Or the one, several $1 million machine that can make one type of t-shirt.
Yeah, it's like, okay, cool.
I was like, yeah, cool. All right.
All right. But like, what if you had one person who had all the knowledge to be able to make 1,000 different things, or could just tailor your suit? Like those things in itself are like, God, that is a person. That is I want to put all my money into that.
Yep.
Throw my money at that.
And it's a longer term investment.
It is. And it's like, oh, it's like everybody wants to make things a machine now. They want to make everything like digitalized, or like, why can't we make it a robot? And it's like, maybe you need to be a robot.
Sewing is really hard to teach to a robot. They have tried so many times,
Yeah,
but they're just, it's hard. It's very hard. You know, because they literally have to count each thread so that they don't end up, it's bonkers. It's bonkers.
I'm just convinced we have to go back. Honestly, I think we have gotten to a stupid point in commercial fashion that I think we need to go back in time. I think it makes no sense. Clothes don't fit us, you know, like,
no,
we should be creating clothes that fit the body. Like, we need to be going back to clothes, like getting clothes. I would do anything to go back in time, just have like 10, 20 clothes that fit me perfectly. That,
oh yeah,
no problem. But I went to a tailor shop, and that's the norm. And like they make everything for me. I pay them all the money in the world, and I have all the clothes that fit me. Like, why aren't we doing that? That's so much better. That's so much better for the environment. So much better for people.
It is a new thing again. It is becoming more popular.
It is.
Like, you know, apparently there's a week spa you can go to in Poland and get all of your underwear made specifically to you.
Hey, that was amazing. But yeah,
yeah, a bra that actually fits.
On like TikTok of like all these kids wanting slow fashion, all these kids like learning how to make their own corsets, learning how to make their own shirts and pants and dresses.
Not supporting slavery.
Not supporting that anymore.
Slavery.
So I'm really hoping we push to this better form of doing all clothing. I don't think we will, but like it's a dream, and it's like, it's so much better. But it's cute to see kids really being interested in sewing. Like, I think that wasn't a thing before.
Yep, not as much, that's for sure.
Yeah,
and
like dying art.
I think I sent you the 99%.
You did.
Invisible podcast. Right. Okay, good. I tried to send it to everybody.
I got it.
There's a reason why clothes don't fit. There's a reason.
It's capitalism.
Nobody's actually average. Nobody is. Oh, man.
Yep.
Well, I suppose I know you have to get up early because I have to get up early.
Yes.
I should probably let you go, huh? Always a pleasure, though.
Thank you, Beth.
If you do come up with your list of red flags,
oh my God, I'm gonna ask
employers. We should do this again.
Okay, this sounds great.
You know, you have an excellent perspective, and I love hearing from you. So, always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Do it more often.
I think it's great. It's great. Also, so nice to see your face. I haven't seen it in a year.
I know, right? It's like,
oh my God, that's bad. So long.
It's so funny, like, and when I see people like in passing outside over lunch or whatever, I'm like, who's that? Oh God.
Really? The pandemic is gonna end, and I'm gonna be like, oh my God, I worked with that person, and I can't, like, maybe if I
wait. Can I just see right here? Can I see this? Like, oh no, they changed their glasses. I will never know them ever again. Like
I've seen Carmen's face probably the most, and every time I see it, I'm like, that's your face. Oh my God.
Yeah. Heaven forbid she ever changes her eyebrows.
Oh my God.
Like,
oh my God.
She already changes her hair color. Is amazing to begin with. And I love it.
Yeah.
But I would be absolutely lost if she changed her. Granted, I'm horribly face blind anyways. I walked past my own mother in the airport once.
Oh
but
my
that's a whole other story.
Oh no,
like
that's so bad.
Fire. So I'm not great at that to begin with, but oh man, just the masks do not help.
Oh my God, I can't wait until I see people's faces again. I can't wait.
Yeah. So just know, if I ever walk by you, it is not deliberate.
I will not be hurt. I will not be hurt. I will look at you and be like, Bev, don't worry.
Like, yay! Oh, it is good stuff.
Okay, well, I will go to bed. It's late.
Yes, it is late. I've kept you for so long. Thank you so much.
Of course. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.